Welcome to Fun Palais Podcast, where we are unpacking opinions and changing destinations. I am your host, Shirley Altador, where each week we will chat about how to rise strong out of all types of obstacles that come with relationships. Through personal life experiences and discussions ranging from infidelity, trust, forgiveness, sex, heartbreak, self-love, and so much more. I am passionate and obsessed to provide guidance to every woman to create a better life. Let's dive in, pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. With me, your virtual girlfriend. Welcome back to Fun Palais. Today we have two special guests, Stephanie and Jennifer, who are quantum relationship coaches, and they work with the LGBTQ community and allies who are desiring spiritual-based relationships. Recently married, they live in Toledo, Ohio, with their teenage son, dogs Riley and Toby, and cats Micah and Lily. They live a life centered in spirit, continuous self-care, self-love, and loving with purpose, practicing healthy living through eating organic, vegetarian foods, kayaking and biking, hiking, swimming, and using many well-rounded practices for mind, body, and spirit to live the good life. Ladies, welcome to the show. How are you?
We are wonderful. Thank
Very
you for
good.
having us.
Not a problem. I'm glad for you guys to be here because the topic that we are going to talk about today is extremely important. It needs to be discussed. It's not discussed enough. Of course, a lot of the things on my show are not discussed enough. Everything just seems to be so taboo in the world today. So definitely, you guys can start off with your story, your business, and let us know like who you are, what you do, how'd you met. You recently got married, so congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I'll start off. I'm Jennifer, and I am originally from the state of New York, but now obviously reside in Toledo, Ohio.
You're not far from me. I'm in New Jersey.
Okay, I went to college in New Jersey, so
we're
there you
really
go.
look, small little world.
Yeah, I lived in New Jersey for a while too. So
What part? I'm in
I
Central.
lived. Okay, I lived in South Jersey as a child, but then Central Jersey when I went to college.
Okay. All right. Well, we weren't too far from each other then.
Probably not. Probably
No.
not. It's near and dear to my heart. I definitely miss the East Coast, living out here in Toledo. But I've been out here in Toledo for many years now. Stephanie and I met almost 12 years ago now. So it's been an interesting ride, a typical relationship where you have all of the, emotion of love or lust for most people. It seems like love, but I don't know if it can be love from the very beginning. We jumped right in, hook, line, and sinker, right from the very beginning of our relationship. And unfortunately, during the first year, I had a medical procedure that didn't go very well and took me out of my career. So lots of things changed in my life because, my career was so important to me. And now all of a sudden I became permanently disabled and I had a young son when we met. So a lot of these responsibilities turned on to Stephanie and, things change very quickly. And all of I guess the baggage that you bring along with you from your childhood and other relationships kind of start to come out when things get a little rough. And so things didn't always stay well with us at the very beginning of our relationship.
Okay, that's I have a question. So
Sure.
Jennifer, your son, or I should say your son. Sorry if I'm using like
No,
politically
that's fine.
incorrect words. Okay. Natural born son, not adopted, because I automatically assume adopted, so I'm wrong for that.
No, he is naturally born. I had artificial insemination.
Okay.
And so he is naturally born. And he
Okay.
was 5 when Stephanie and I met.
Okay, so you decided to do this on your own, like as a single woman before you even met Stephanie to have a child?
I was with another partner at the time,
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
and that relationship didn't last, and he was only about 15 months old when I became a single mom. So I was single from the time he was 15 months old until I met Stephanie when he was 5.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. So you're going to have to share with us because this is so educational for me because most of the time when you hear single moms, it's hetero
Yep.
relationships. So this is very interesting with me because I wanted to know, is that your past partner still in the picture? Do they still help you out? Like, how do you decide in a homosexual relationship who keeps the child, or like, that is very interesting to me. Like, now you became a single mom and it wasn't a
Right,
heterosexual relationship.
right. Well, back when I had my son, the
Uh-huh.
laws were not as good as they are today. We were not allowed to marry.
Oh, okay.
So we were not married,
Okay.
and she was not allowed in this state. This state doesn't allow
Second parent
second
adoptions.
parent same sex adoptions in Ohio. It still doesn't allow it. So she was not able to adopt my son. So she had no legal right to him
Oh
by
my.
law.
Okay.
Now, of course, I could have allowed her to stay in his life, but I chose not to
Okay.
because she didn't really fit the bill of a good mother. And that was part of why I left her to begin with.
Okay.
So she is really not in his life at all.
Okay.
She will see him every once in a while because I did allow her parents to stay in his life because they were amazing grandparents.
Okay. Wonderful.
So she does see him every once in a while, but it's not very often anymore, especially he's almost 17, so he doesn't even spend much time with grandma anymore.
Oh, okay. So he's a big boy now. He's
He's a
okay.
big boy.
He's a big boy now. Okay. That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that because I never even thought, like, first of all, you're courageous. 17 years ago, times were different, that you even wanted to have a child. And, even though you knew you couldn't get married, you were willing to take on that huge task. But that's interesting to know. Now, with Stephanie in the picture, was Stephanie able to adopt him?
She is not allowed to
Oh,
adopt
because
him.
Ohio, not at all.
Not
Not
at
at
all.
all. Still not allowed, but she is his stepmother now because we are legally married.
Okay.
So there are some legal
I do have some legal rights now.
and
Okay,
it's
good.
more for legal protection for him. It's
Okay.
not, my concern for quite some time before we got married was, God forbid something happens to me.
Exactly.
Stephanie didn't have any legal right to be his parent. Someone else could come in and say, oh, like another next of kin in my family, like I have a sister.
Mhm.
And by law, she would have had more rights to raise him than Stephanie, who's been raising him for 12 years.
I agree with you. And that's one thing I really am not happy when it comes to the laws of how they jump from person to person if something was to happen to you and who has rights and who doesn't have rights. Now, if you don't mind me asking, did you and Stephanie think about having more children?
We did. In fact, when I had that medical procedure that went wrong, the reason I did that is because I have a chronic pain condition and I was on medication that would not have been safe to get
I see.
pregnant. I was on narcotics.
Got it.
Stephanie was not medically able to have children, so it was a matter of if we were going to have children together, it was going to be myself who carried.
Okay, gotcha.
So I went through a medical procedure that was going to put in a spinal stimulator that basically would tell my body it wasn't feeling pain when it felt pain.
Okay.
So I could get off the medicine, and the procedure went bad.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it didn't work.
Gotcha.
And unfortunately, I ended up with extra medical problems after the fact.
Oh.
And so then at that point, we knew that it wasn't going to be conducive for us to have any other children together.
Gotcha. Well, at least you were blessed with one son. So that's a
Absolutely.
blessing of its own. Yeah. And, you just have to look at it as, you know what, God, you didn't want this. So we'll be happy with what we have. Okay.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So did you meet Stephanie in Ohio? And I guess, Stephanie, you want to introduce yourself?
Please do.
Who, me?
Yes. Jennifer and I are just like chit-chatting it away. Go ahead, Stephanie, introduce yourself, girl.
All right, so I'm Stephanie. I'm the other half, maybe less than half today.
No,
But
no,
I'm
never.
totally cool with that. No, I'm totally joking. I was born and raised in Ohio. I lived on the East Coast for 17 years and came back here
Okay.
for a kinder, gentler living because it
Okay.
was getting really expensive in Massachusetts, and I was tired of living on my own and struggling so much. So I came back here, and my parents were aging, so I wanted to be nearer to them.
Okay.
And so that's what landed me back in Ohio. And I met Jennifer here, and we did have a little stint in Las Vegas when because she was really not well, so we were trying to, the desert is supposed to be good for lots of health conditions. It was not that much better. She did enjoy the warmth, but it didn't. So we came back here, and we've been here ever since. And I think at this point, this is home base. We'll probably do some traveling, but this is home base. I love it here. This is my home. And so, yeah, we have a great relationship now, but we did met 12 years ago and made it through 6 years before all the baggage got too heavy to carry, and we actually split up for three
Oh,
years.
okay.
Yeah.
So, well, it was destined because you guys reconnected again.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Wonderful. So that's good. And that's all within the 12 years, right? Six, three,
Yes.
and then you guys are back together. Wonderful. So,
Yes.
how recent was the marriage within the last year?
We would, April 18th is our anniversary,
Uh,
first year.
Oh, well, congratulations. Now, is it because when the laws changed, now you were able to marry in Ohio? Is that why you didn't get married sooner?
I'm kind of a rebel, and I'm not a real big person that wants the government to like put their seal of approval on anything, because I'm just like, I don't need the government to give me a stamp to say that we have a great relationship. So I was not really for it. And we got back together, what, 2.5 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago that we got back together. So before that, we were just not stable enough to do it and to stand up in front of God and family and say, we love each other and this is going to work. We weren't there.
Got it.
And then when we got back together about a year and a half in, we were looking for places to live together. And I said, I'm ready to get married. Will you marry me?
Oh, so the rebel in her changed. I can understand what you mean by rebel because my husband, and we're not legally married in the eyes of New Jersey as well, our thought processes have changed because he feels the same way you felt at one point in time, where it's like, why do New Jersey need to know that we're married? And that the same way you thought. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
even see it as a rebel. It's really a realistic, positive question. Why? Which Jennifer made a good point, especially for legality reasons. That's really
Yep.
truly the reason why. If something was to happen, it protects the both of you,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the shitty ass like government at times I feel as though we have, regardless what state you live in. So I
Mm-hmm.
understand your concern about what you mean when you say, like, why do they need to be all up in there? It doesn't mean you don't love your partner. It's just, why do you need this piece of paper?
Right. It in my opinion wasn't going to change our relationship. It would change some of the protections. And what we did is that we met with an estate attorney and went around it that way.
Got
So
it.
we got very clear wills and trusts that disinherited people who we didn't want to have our son,
Mm-hmm.
and said that if she passes away, Ian was to come to me and be with me, and that all of the money from her life insurances would go into a trust so that he would have it, and that I could only use it for his care, those sorts of things. So we went around it that way
Wonderful, which is good. And
rather than,
people need to know those options are available if you didn't want to get married, as long as you have all your documents in order properly.
right.
But
Yeah.
So,
it still doesn't mean that someone can't argue it.
Yeah, that's true
yeah,
too, because
yeah.
it can come into a whole big argument because if your documents are not in proper order, it
Hmm.
does create a huge issue
Oh,
because you
yeah.
did not legalize it.
Right.
Right. And unfortunately, there are people in this world that see, oh, there's a life insurance policy. I want to get my hands on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the unfortunate thing that happens sometimes when people die, that, people start getting greedy about, what can I inherit from that person? And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Exactly.
that's why I thought, this was just the better way to protect our son so that he has the protections he needs, because he also has special needs. He has high functioning autism.
Okay.
So his care is going to be ongoing, even though, he's quite capable and may at some point be able to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always that possibility that he may not. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, how did you guys get in the business that you are in? Quantum relationship coach, is that correct?
Quantum relationship coaching, yes.
Why quantum, and what exactly in the line of business you're in, what is quantum meaning?
Quantum really refers to metaphysics. It's the mind, body, spirit perspective on who we are as beings.
Okay.
So it really brings in that mind and spirit piece rather than just our behaviors. So many coaches and therapists come at it from, if I teach you how to communicate and back and forth and you do these things, these different behaviors, then you're going to be all well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is taking it to another level, which is that get good with your spiritual self and connect to who you truly are. And the and will give you all of these skills that you can learn it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, now your relationship is really good.
Okay. Okay.
And you are really good. And your relationship is growing you and you are growing within it. So that's the quantum piece. If you think like Einstein, not
Okay.
Newton, in terms of physics.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And how
Yeah.
long have you been in business? What made you guys want to go into this field, particular this niche, I should say?
Yeah. I am by trade a clinical social worker. I've had
Okay.
my private practice for a few years and was getting a little itchy,
Okay.
wanting something a little bit extra to
Okay.
do on top of it, and found myself, I started thinking about what was I doing in my practice that was making me really get jazzed.
Okay.
And it was talking about relationships and spirituality.
Gotcha.
And so I came home one day and I said, "What do you think about doing coaching together? Because we have so much to offer. We've grown so much together.
Mm-hmm.
What if we just added this on to the work that we're both doing and really start to change the world?" We've been teaching some spiritual classes for 3 or 4 years now, and we love doing that together
Okay.
and feel that us as a team is just amazing. And if one of us is not well, like Sunday night, Jennifer wasn't well, so I went on and did our coaching myself.
Okay. Okay.
So it's like you get a 2-for-1. It's awesome.
Yes. And it
Um,
doesn't stress the other person out, because when you're the solo person in the business now, if Jennifer wasn't well, now you have to contact all those clients and reschedule.
right, right. So it's really kind of cool. So that was why, I was just looking for more. I wanted more deeper work because mental health and wellness in 50 minutes, I believe, is a moving target.
Got it.
And so I can have someone in my office for 50 minutes a week for 52 weeks, and we're not talking about anything that much different than we were in week 4.
Gotcha.
So I wanted to be able to go deeper and wider, and I also wanted to be able to work with Jennifer more. And it was almost a God thing because when I originally started imagining it, it was going to be Stephanie, as a solo gig. And then I met some people and I got some ideas and I came home and I just was jazzed. And I was like, no, we got to do this together. This is it. This is what we're going to do. It's amazing. It's going to be so much fun and we'll create this program. And I said, come on, do this with me. It's going to be amazing.
and
So,
we created our program around the tools that we used to bring our relationship back together, both
oh,
individually and collectively together. So we know this stuff works because we are a living, breathing example of it, and we do it every day.
oh, that's a good thing. You are an example of what you're preaching to other people. That is
Indeed.
really good. That's good.
Hmm.
Now, this is a bonus for you, Stephanie, because your first profession is basically along the lines of the same thing you're doing, the same thing you guys are doing now. What about you, Jennifer? Is your previous profession in the lines of the same thing?
Well, I worked before I became totally disabled. I did work in the field of social services. I am
Okay.
not licensed. I have a master's. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in criminology. But I've always worked in social services and always been fascinated in the way the brain and the mind works.
So that's the difference. Stephanie, that's why you say clinician, you're licensed.
Yes.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Got
Yeah,
it.
she's a licensed social worker, so she has her own private practice.
Gotcha. Now, is this the same social worker I'm thinking when I think of DIFUS, or this is a level up?
DIFUS, is that your like human services
Oh,
agency? Like,
yeah, that's what we call
tell
it
me
in
what
New
that
Jersey.
means.
Yeah, so like, when they come to inspect
Children's
the children,
services.
yes.
Yeah,
Is it totally different
totally
completely?
different. So
Okay.
that people who take care of children, like children and family services,
Mm-hmm.
is one segment of social work.
Got it.
So as a social worker, you can do that work. Typically, those folks are not licensed, or they have bachelor's degrees.
Okay. Okay.
So I actually have a master's degree plus 2 years of post grad supervision to get my independent license. So I mean, if you
So
think of
she's a
us,
therapist.
yeah, if you think of a
Okay.
psychologist
Gotcha.
and they're on one step, I'm like half a step below them in terms of licensure.
Gotcha. So
And
you are way beyond that. Got it.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Got it. Got it. No
Yeah,
disrespect.
she
Didn't mean to
does.
say that. Okay.
No, no, no.
Okay. Okay.
It's a very common thing that people think when I say social worker. And I don't know why I even do that. I should just say therapist because
Okay.
that's really what I do. The
Okay.
title that I have is social worker.
Gotcha.
But what I am, I'm a therapist. I work
Okay.
with people to help them figure out, they come to me with depression, anxiety, sometimes bipolar, sometimes, even more significant mental health struggles. And we figure out what are the coping tools that you're not using, or what are the coping tools that you're using that aren't working. What can we start using that will work and get you back to a healthy place?
Now, I wanted to ask you, originally you had sent, and I know you said I can just say LGBTQ. What does the I stand for?
Intersex.
Intersex. Please explain to me, what does that mean?
Those are people that were born with genetic differences. So either XXY or X. I think there's XYY. So that their genetics, their sex chromosomes were wrong.
Is this the same people I'm thinking I've heard in the past where someone might be born with a penis and a vagina?
Or a penis and ovaries.
Oh, okay. And they're called intersex. That's what the I stands for.
Yes.
And what does the A stand for?
Usually allies or asexual.
And what does that mean?
Asexual are people that really feel that they don't have a sex drive. They don't want to connect with people sexually. They don't have a traditional sexual identity of either gay, lesbian, straight,
They don't quite know who they are because
or they truly do not wish to
have any relation.
that sexual identity.
Okay, so therapist Stephanie, you're going to have to give me a little education here. No sex drive? Is that
Probably not.
even
Probably not.
that's possible, not to have a sex drive?
Look,
Is-
I know. Poor things, huh?
I know, like, so it's just turned off. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
woman. There's been days where we all have been that. Not today. Okay, just don't touch me today. I get it, but
Right.
it's turned
Like
off
ever.
all the time.
Well, and I think my personal position on this, my personal perspective, and I don't have a lot of science behind this, so
Okay.
take it for what you will. But if you are born with some genetic abnormalities, not traditional
Okay.
genetics, where you have a lot of estrogen and a lot of testosterone, and they're canceling each other out, might that
Okay.
create? Because our sex drive is very hormonal.
Yes, it is. That I agree with you 100%.
So if genetically we're imbalanced, maybe that's part of it.
Okay, that makes sense. I never, I guess, thought about it from that perspective. I just thought like,
Mhm.
oh, you don't want to do it at all? That's
Right?
immediately what came to mind. Okay.
Right. And I think typically when we think of someone who doesn't want to do it at all, it's from like a trauma reason. That
That
they've been
too.
harmed.
Yes, but that's not always the case, obviously.
No, sometimes it's not there.
Okay, that's very interesting. And
It is.
how do you deal when those people come to you? Like, and how would you know? I guess it's through your evaluation that you do
Mhm.
and you find out. Okay, so, and I already know what the other ones mean. LGBTQ. I realized you didn't have T in here, but you told
That
me.
might have been my error.
Oh,
I
okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That might
so
have been
so
my error typo.
Oh,
That's
okay.
probably a typo.
Oh,
Because
okay.
yes, we do work with folks who are transgender.
we actually have quite a few
Quite a
clients who are
few.
trans.
So I have a question. Now, what does, and I'm still learning this, bi binary. What exactly does that mean?
Okay, so the word binary
Uh-huh.
is either or. That's its dictionary definition.
Okay.
So it's either male or female.
They
So,
identify as either or?
right. So you,
Yes.
how do you identify?
She.
As a female.
Mm-hmm.
I
Female.
identify as a female.
Yes.
A non binary person is someone kind of like that intersex person who does not wish to identify as either female or male. They want to just be themselves without a gender identity.
Oh, that's why it's non-binary.
Correct.
Gotcha. That's why they're using non-binary because they don't want to identify. Is that when they say they or
Yes.
them?
They or them. Yes.
They or them.
Okay. All right. So this is good for me because every time I hear that word, I'm like, what is that exactly supposed to mean? So when it comes to who they want to have a relationship with, it could be both male or female, depending
Mhm.
on what their personal preference is.
Yes. Yeah, who they connect with. And I would guess many times it's going to be someone else who's also non-binary because that's someone who they would connect with.
I see. Okay. All right. That's interesting. So now, what in your coaching business, what, I guess, let me ask this question. It's not more like empowerment. What has bring you the most satisfaction, I guess I should say, by going into this line of business in this world that we live in? Because I feel like when it comes to the LGBTQ community, it's not talked about enough. And there's still a large group of people I feel like that are very ashamed in talking about it because they don't want to be judged by the world. We are very judgmental human beings, which is awful to say.
It's a true story.
Yeah, I think the greatest um, thing that I have seen with folks is when they can really truly feel comfortable in their skin and who they are, no matter what other people may or may not think. It's self-love.
Hmm.
It's teaching these folks, teaching all of our folks the importance of self-love because we can't control what other people in the environment and the rest of the world thinks. We can't. We have no control over that. I have no control what my neighbor thinks of me, but I do have
Exactly.
control over what I think of me. And
Exactly.
if I am comfortable in my skin, then I'm more likely to radiate that kind of energy, which then in turn, people around me are going to accept me and get to know me and say, oh, wait a minute, you're really not any different than so and so. Just
Mhm.
because I say that I'm a lesbian doesn't mean that I'm any different than you as a woman. We're
Hmm.
both women. It doesn't
Exactly.
matter.
Exactly.
So it's that self-love. I think that's been the thing that I love to see the most in our clients.
Gotcha. And Stephanie, would you say the same?
Um, I think I would zero in a little bit more on how folks are seeing their trauma through new eyes and how that it has impacted their relationships and caused them to be so armored up
Hmm.
and to really identify the armor and start to be willing to take it down so that they can truly connect.
Gotcha. I like that because I think we all have shields that we put up. Even me myself, through some of the trauma I've been through in my relationship, even till this day, I still have some walls I need to knock down
Hmm.
that I'm working on. You know, every day is a learning experience for me, and I can always be better. So
Hmm.
that's how I look at it. So I
Yeah.
definitely like both of your responses. The self-care is important and the knocking down of the armor. I like how you said that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, another question I have, you guys ever had a heterosexual relationship? Have you guys ever been with a man, if you don't mind me asking?
I was actually married to one for a bit.
You were. And
I
Jennifer, you
was.
were never married to
I
a
was
man?
never married to a man, but I have had heterosexual relations as a teen and in my early 20s before I finally realized, like, yeah, no, I really like women better.
Okay. Now, I have a question for you. So, I am in a relationship with a man, but I have been with a woman. Now, personally, I don't want to spend the rest of my life with a woman. I would rather spend the rest of my life with a man because I look at it as I get the best of both worlds. And I guess with a woman, I think it was just more when I was younger. It was a fun thing.
Mhm.
Do you guys look at it the same way, but opposite, where you would rather spend the rest of your life with a woman, but I guess in your case, you have no interest in a man at all whatsoever. The time that you were married, Stephanie, were you sexually unhappy?
I was generally unhappy,
Oh,
but
okay. So it was a bigger thing. It
it
wasn't just the
what
sex.
well, and here's the interesting thing. A couple of years after I came out, he did too.
No, really?
For real.
And you had no
I
idea?
had no idea. He totally denied it the whole time. He would say, "I know where my eyes go. I know that I'm straight." Yeah, well, a couple years after I finally came out, he was like, "Yeah, no."
Wow.
So, but there's
Wow.
lots and lots of people. I think in some ways, and it's funny. A couple of the guys that I dated in high school
Mm-hmm.
also were gay.
Oh,
So I think that there was almost like a psychic connection of differentness
mm-hmm.
that was safe,
And you guys didn't even realize it.
and we didn't even realize it. So looking back, I can say, oh, maybe that's why, because we both felt like we didn't quite belong
Okay.
in the quote normal relationship. So there was a connection there, but I don't think it was a conscious connection.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
I mean I was certainly trying to grow up and follow in the footsteps of, grow up, have the two kids, have the two cars, the dog in the garage, and I wanted to have that's what we're supposed to have.
That's what society tells us. There's no manual
Exactly.
to this stuff.
Well, I know that, but I graduated in 1988 from a little town in the bumpkin part of Ohio. I mean, I didn't even know what the word lesbian was until after I graduated. I literally had never like connected it.
Did you even because I know people say you're not born that way. This is something you choose. I do not believe that. I
I
do
don't either.
believe that from the time you are young, if you are attracted to the opposite sex, you know. I
Yeah.
just believe people choose to leave that little part as a secret to themselves. Like I have no problem, and even when I was younger, if I see an attractive woman, I have no problem letting that woman know she's attractive. And I feel even though I'm more attracted to the male, but there are very attractive women out there, and I
Hmm.
have no shame in saying that. And it's
Hmm.
not anything sexual, but I feel, especially men, they will not tell you at all if another
It's
man
very
is
uncomfortable for
attractive.
them. Yeah,
Very,
very
that's
uncomfortable.
not something, oh, no, no, I
Yeah.
can't do that. Nope.
No, but even today, if Stephanie and I are watching TV or out somewhere and there's an attractive man, we can appreciate that and
Yeah.
say, "Oh, that's a nice looking man." I mean, it doesn't
Uh-huh.
mean that we want to have a relationship with this person, but we can
Exactly.
appreciate that they're a nice looking human
Yeah.
being. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my son is a very handsome young man, and I'm not ashamed to say that. You
Exactly.
know,
I think
I mean,
it's more
yes, he's my
comfortable
son.
for women, though, to say that than it
It
is for
is.
men.
Yeah, the cultural norms allow for a much wider spectrum there.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Stephanie. You can finish. I'm
Are
sorry.
are you familiar with the Kinsey scale?
No, what is that?
That is the scale of sexuality that goes from completely asexual or completely gay to completely heterosexual.
The Kinsey scale. So is that like a
Yes.
test you take, like the IQ
It,
test?
it kind of. I don't know. There's probably tests. Kinsey was a researcher. I believe he was in the 50s and 60s, and he created this scale. And there's actually a movie about him. And
Did you
Liam
guys,
Neeson.
when we're all done, make sure you send me that because when we post this, I want to make sure is there like a website people could go to
I'm
for
sure
this?
there is. I don't even
Okay.
know, but I'll find some stuff for you.
Okay.
But it's very, so in one end there's 100% heterosexual
Okay.
and looking for the opposite gender to be attracted to, and then the other side is 100% same-sex attraction.
I've never heard of this, and I'd never realized that there was a test that you could taste. Is this
Right.
accurate?
I think it is. I've kind of watched it for a long time and watched myself. So, and I think that, whereas Jennifer might be closer to the 100% same sex,
Okay.
maybe in that, say if it's 0 to 100, she's more of like that 80 to 90.
Okay.
Whereas I think I'm more like 50 to 70.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
just, just me. I am able to have deeper connections with men. I do not want to spend the rest of my life with one. I don't want to be in an intimate relationship with a man. But I think that I'm a little closer to the bisexual, which would be right in the middle.
Interesting. Okay, so this is something I have never looked at, the Kinsey scale.
Kinsey scale, yes.
Never heard of a Kinsey scale. Okay, never heard of that. So that's interesting. Make sure you guys send me the
I will
links.
certainly do that.
That way I can add it when we post this and everyone, they can click on it, take the test, or do what needs to be done. Send me that info because that's all
Sure.
I'm actually interested in taking it to see where I fall on this line.
Yeah, I'll find some stuff for you.
And Jennifer, how about yourself when it comes to the opposite sex? When the
Um,
relationships you've had in the past?
well, I was in a couple different relationships with men, as I said, when I was younger. And um, there was some physical attraction, but there just wasn't the connection
Got it.
that and the connection was missing. No matter how many men or, I think there was, I'm trying to think, two or three men that I had an intimate relationship with. The intimacy was just, there was always something missing. And I
Gotcha.
just thought, oh, maybe it's just not the right person. Maybe it's just not the right guy. And okay, I'll find another. And then when I met a woman, it was just like, oh, now I see what was missing, because that connection was there
Yeah.
when I met, when I would be attracted to a woman. And I don't just mean sexual, just the emotional, the spiritual connection, just the connection that I have with women is just very different. And I have male friends.
Hmm.
We have male friends. But again, I don't, in fact, I know for a fact that I would never be in a intimate relationship with a man, because I just don't connect on that level.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's not always sexual. I feel like sexual is the icing on the cake because the
Right.
communication, the spiritual, even someone's natural scent has to all match up. All that stuff needs to fit. And then the sexual part is the icing on the cake. You have to see, okay,
Mhm.
this is the final thing. We're going to see if this fits. Because if it doesn't, and if it doesn't, I guess you could work around that. But
You can find ways and you can find ways to connect, and
yes,
then that part can grow.
yes, yes.
But and that's why we do the work that we do, because when we talk about people who are gay or trans, everybody always thinks sex. Oh, I'm gay. Oh, how many times have I looked at someone and said, "Yeah, I'm a lesbian," and I can tell that they're imagining me in the bedroom.
Is
It's
it
like,
the hypersexual? I had an interview with this girl, a friend of mine. She's also a flight attendant. And is it because of the hypersexual people always immediately go to sex?
well, and I think our society does in some ways, doesn't it? I mean, we
Yes,
we use sex to sell cars.
you're right. Sex is
So,
everything.
right. So the work that we do is to go beyond the sex.
Hmm.
It's to go to your mind, body, spirit. Because, and mind, spirit is really what we talk about. We don't spend much time talking about your body at all in the work that we do. It's really about, how is your mind working? How are you connecting with people? What's your spiritual connection like? Who are you? Who's your authentic self? And we need to transcend it, especially in the men's community. Gay men, they have such a hard time. Their body image has been so big,
Hmm.
and they are so trapped by the persona of a gay man and how they're supposed to look, and how they're supposed to act, and am I supposed to be a strong man, or am I supposed to be effeminate? It's harder to be a gay man than it is to be a lesbian, I swear.
I
You
agree
know.
100%.
Oh my gosh. So we want to get below that in terms
Also,
of depth.
Stephanie, I wanted to add, do you feel as though also for parents, it is more acceptable for them to mentally accept if my daughter is a lesbian as opposed if my son is gay? It is easier for them to, I guess, mentally rationalize that, well, that's okay. But my son, oh, I don't know if I can deal with that. That's not okay.
Yep,
Why is that?
absolutely.
Especially, you know, you have, I see it more with the fathers having difficulty with it because I think it takes away some of their masculinity if they're
Mm-hmm.
gay.
Yep.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of like historical. I mean, think about our species
Mm-hmm.
has been carried on by the male progeny.
Mm-hmm.
We've been a very patriarchal society for millennia. So male children are supposed to grow up and procreate to carry on the family line. Well, the odds of a gay male carrying on the family line is low. So there's like this underlying like DNA memory that tells us that it's so not okay for a man to not grow up and spread his seed. And I think that that's like the underlying thing. And then there's all the other stuff, like people being grossed out by the idea of sex because that's all we think about and those sorts of things. But I think that there's like this unconscious, like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. You know, women, okay, if you don't have children, okay, well, my son's gonna go have 12. It'll be okay.
Yep. That is the
So
thinking. Now, as before we end, I wanted to ask a question. Number one, educational for me and for our listeners. So I have a daughter and a son. My son is 12, my daughter's 13. And I've had open discussions with him about being gay and having gay friends and letting him know that's okay. Is there another part of the conversation I should have with him? I mean, I haven't had anything in depth with him, but I just let him know that's okay. And ever, if that's something men is of interest of you for you, mommy's not going to care. Is there any other way that I should approach this? Because I always thought about like, how do you have that conversation with your child?
mm,
I think that, in general, um, with our children growing up, that if we can let them know that whoever they are is okay,
Okay.
and just no matter what it is, that we will accept you no matter what because you are my child and I love you, then I think that's really all we need to do. I mean, I know that, like with our son,
Mm-hmm.
our son's being raised by two moms. So he doesn't have a dad. And so we have the role of, both parents to fill that. And then there's been times where he's like, well, I don't know, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that, maybe I'm this. And it's like, Ian, it doesn't matter. We
Okay.
will support you no matter what, whether you are with a woman or whether you think you want to be with a man, or even if you think that you're supposed to be a woman and need to change your sex, we don't care. And I think what you're doing is great. As long as you tell your kids that I'm going to love you no matter what, and come to me if you have questions. And if I don't have the answers, I will find a way, I will find them for you because we're not going to have all the answers.
Exactly.
Especially like, if our son has questions about, if he ever felt that he should be a woman and not a man, we're not transsexual. So we might have to get him some assistance from someone who has more experience in, transitioning from one sex to the next or whatever the case may be. So, I think what you're doing is great.
mhm.
Okay, wonderful. So that's good to know. And I don't need to overcomplicate it and think it. Just keep it simple.
And I think that as a society, we also need to continue to grow out of our heterosexist language.
Stephanie, on key, because that's automatically even and I'm glad you said it that way, Jennifer, because you just said we will love you no matter what. You didn't specify gender or anything. And I do not need to do that when I'm speaking with them. And as you said, Stephanie, because my mind is automatically going to that heterosexual place.
Right. Right. And so just, watching ourselves and how we speak all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how we really show. It's not just this 3 seconds that I'm telling you this, that I love you and I will celebrate you.
Mm-hmm.
It's when I look at that person over there, I'm going to love and celebrate them too.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
And we want our kids to be open and willing to accept anybody. I don't want my son to turn around and be homophobic or treat someone poorly because they're different than him.
Mhm.
So again, it all depends on our language, and it also is the example that we are to this world and to our children. So, it doesn't matter that, I'm pretty sure that our son is heterosexual. I'm pretty sure that that is the case. So for us to say, oh, we don't understand that because we're not,
Mhm.
isn't right. We have to
Gotcha.
know and be able to share with him in his joy in who he is
Exactly.
and accept him for who he is and have him accept everybody around him. I don't want him to, start talking about, oh, well, that kid's gay and talk badly about that person because that's just not acceptable.
Exactly.
So we have to be those examples.
Yep.
And it is really, really hard. I'm sure your son is into video games. Your children are into video games, like all of ours are. And the terrible language that these children are using. I mean, we can hear everything that our son says from another room, and I have to stop myself from going in there and freaking out because he's using these words. So we have lots of conversations. It's like, those are not words we use. And I understand that you are 16 years old and you have some choices, but that is not one that I accept you to make.
I
So
agree. Yep. Stephanie, I'm right there with you. My
we
son's a
we
gamer, so he's hearing it. He's thinking it's okay. His dad saw some curse words in his text messages the other day, and he was like, I see these curse words that you're using in your text messages. And that my son's like, well, I'm not saying it to you guys. And I said, but that's not okay.
It's not
no,
okay.
It's not okay, you know?
yeah,
Right, because then you're gonna have situations where they're not gonna be able to turn it off.
Exactly.
For example, our son has a job now for the first time, and he's already gotten written up because of his bad language. And it's because he uses it with his gamer friends,
Hmm.
and so he can't turn it off
No, they don't.
completely.
They're young. They don't
They're
know. And they
young, they
don't
don't.
know how to shut the filter off, know when to turn it off and on. They don't know.
right.
Like you and I, yes, we know how to turn that off and on when need be.
Mm-hmm.
These teenagers do not.
Nope.
They
It's
don't know that
acceptable
yet.
anywhere and everywhere I could be who I want to be.
Yep.
Not at work, baby.
Well,
No,
there's certain roles things that we have to do in our life, and
Yeah.
but anyway,
But so before, as we end, I wanted to say, what message do you have to give, especially I feel to the millennials these days? And it's crazy. I'm about to be 38 years old in 2 weeks, and I fall under the freaking millennial category, which is interesting to me. But I just made the cut because I was born in 83, and I think millennials start in 82, which is interesting.
so you're right on the cusp.
I'm right at the beginning of that cusp. So yeah, I am a millennial about to be 38. But what do you have to say, I guess, we'll say I think it's Gen Z that's after me.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's our son's generation.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they're
He's
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Gen Z, and I guess the younger millennials, because I feel like my age, we're not far from the Generation X. But what do you have to say to the young ones of in the LGBTQ community, how they are, if they're scared for whatever situation they're in, especially now I do believe it's more open than it was before, but I don't know if that openness comes with negativities as well. What do you guys think?
I think it really depends on, your family of origin,
Okay.
especially if you're young, like if you're teenagers like our children are,
Mhm.
and they're still living, with their parents. If they have parents who are telling them that, being homosexual is a sin. I mean, we've been called an abomination. I mean, we've actually been called an abomination, which is really
I
sad.
believe it because
So
there are rotten people out there. Because if you're
there
not
really is.
living the way I want you to live, then your whole lifestyle is shit. That's literally
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
how people are.
So, for those that are still living with, that kind of constriction on them, I just tell them to hang on. Hang on. As soon as you're an adult, you can make your own choices. And sometimes, unfortunately, we have to distance ourselves from even the people who, were our family of origin if they're not going to accept who we are? We have the right to be accepted, and we have the right to surround ourselves with people who are going to accept us.
Thank you
So
for
we get to
bringing that point.
choose.
Sorry, I thank you so much for saying that, because just because you have the same blood flowing through you doesn't mean you need to surround yourself with that negativity. Go ahead, continue, Jennifer. I appreciate you saying that, because people are like, oh, family is thicker than blood is thicker than water. You have to
No,
really look at your situation
my
sometimes.
f- my family that I consider in parentheses quote unquote family are not blood. Those are the people that I've chosen because they love me for who I am and I love them for who they are. So I think that's what's really important is that reach out, find those communities of
Mhm.
people who will accept you for who you are and be proud of who you are. Don't hide who you are. Don't be afraid of who you are. Because God doesn't make mistakes. We're all here for a reason. We all have a purpose on this world. And ultimately, we are all one anyway, in
Exactly.
spirit. So that's basically what I would say. What about you, Steph?
Well, I really love millennials. I think that they are amazing beings. And I love how grounded they are in self care. And it comes off to those of us who are Generation Xers and above that, they're lazy and they don't have a work ethic. Well, I don't think that's true. I think they just have a real clear understanding of what they need as beings.
Mhm.
And so I really encourage anyone listening to really figure out who your authentic self is and live into that every day. And that will not steer you wrong. You don't have to listen to advertisements. You don't have to be sitting inside your phone all the time. Let go of the technology a little bit. Use it for good. Use it for connection. Use it to help you figure out exactly who you are, and then set it down and connect with a human being.
Mhm.
And you will continue to be the amazing being that were born to be.
Exactly. Thank you. So, Jennifer and Stephanie, what services do you offer? Do you offer one-on-one coaching? Do you offer group coaching? Do you offer masterclass? What free option do you offer? Everything, guys, will be available on the website for you to click to go right to their website when this episode posts. But what services do you offer for anyone who is interested? How do your services work?
We do offer one-on-one and group coaching. We have a signature program called Love Gets Better Together, and that's
Okay.
a 6-month program, which is both group and individual coaching. And that's like I said, our signature platinum program. We also have a subscription program, which is called Love Gets Better Together Foundations, if you're not quite ready to jump into the big ticket.
Hmm.
And we get together every 2 weeks and do teaching in a Zoom room.
Okay.
And so that's really cool. And we have a free coaching group called Enchanted Awakenings, the name of our business. And we are in there all the time. And you can find that on Facebook, Enchanted Awakenings, and of course the link will be in the show notes.
Okay.
And you can get in there, and we just ask you to answer a couple questions, so we make sure that it stays a really safe and comfortable place. And we go on there every week and do a half an hour training, and we're always in there talking to people and helping them, get through their relationships. So, and did I miss anything?
And we do free workshops, every so often, usually about every 6 8 weeks we'll do
Okay.
a free workshop. So it might be a day or two, it could be 3 days, it could be 5 days in a row. We do all different kinds of things, and we are probably in our group live probably every day at least for 5 or 10 minutes, just giving a little tidbit about something that we're teaching, or we're right now we're going through a book with everybody. So it's 100 days to chart your course. It's called Girl Be Brave. So it's
Okay.
about being brave, and it's 100 days. So we've been going every day and reading the passage and then giving our tidbits about it and how it affects our life. So, we're really just very involved with our group. And our website is also enchantedawakenings.love. That's our website. So, but you'll have all of that stuff for everyone to
Yes.
connect with us.
Wonderful. Jennifer, Stephanie, I appreciate you guys coming on the show. You guys gave me some insight. Also, I know, what was that scale you told me?
The
Kinsey? The Kinsey scale will also be on there for those of you who are interested in taking that test. I guess it's a test or
I think there's some tests that you can take. I think I've did it once a long time ago. So I will find one that has a quiz that'll kind of give you an outcome.
wonderful. And, as we end, I wanted to say that based off of the information that Jennifer and Stephanie provided us, one thing that is so important is number one, self-love, and also coming from a spiritual standpoint. As Jennifer said, God doesn't make mistakes. Accept yourself for who you are. Don't be ashamed. Blood is not always thicker than water. Sometimes, quote unquote, the people you may call your family may not be true family, but they are accepting and they are loving of you for who you are. So always please keep that in mind. The information of how they can be reached will all be on the show notes on the website. So definitely reach out if wherever you are in your relationship. We all can be better in our relationships. As Stephanie said, learning to put your armor down, which is something I am still working on because I still have walls up. But as we end this episode, we want to thank you guys for listening. Love yourself, voice yourself, and be yourself. Till the next episode, guys. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Femme Parler Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation or share your takeaways, I want to hear from you. Head on over to the website or join our Facebook community and comment your favorite part of the show or share your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Chat with you next week.